Hello, and welcome once again to the Connectivity. I'm your host, Charlie, the Professor Esser, and with me as always is the
Phil?
man. Oh, sorry. No, just say your name. Say your name.
Sorry, I heard applause. Phil me and Parrish.
Yeah, I'm always, being dramatic today. Phil me and Parrish, the man with the knowledge to create an equal balance to my fantasy. And that is why we make a great podcasting duo, without a doubt. So, Phil, business news. Let's open up with business news this week. Disney decided they're totally going to do their own streaming service. And then news come out today of Netflix saying, hey, where you going? Where you going, sweetheart? Why you got to leave?
Netflix says, hey, baby, don't leave. We have a good thing.
Exactly. And see, this is this thing. I don't think Disney is launching this service.
You think it's a negotiation tactic?
I think it's all negotiation tactic, because basically what it is that Disney has been coming to Netflix like a nice little suitor with a dozen roses and a box of chocolates and, $1.2 billion and saying, so Netflix, you want to do something? You want to make this thing happen? We know that you've been liking the Marvel stuff we've been giving you. We know you like the Disney. You got Moana, first run Pixar films right there for you.
Yeah, they must be trying to save money, because I thought I heard something about, what was it, last quarter? I don't know if they didn't hit whatever target they were going for.
Who, Netflix or Disney?
Disney. Well, I heard a whole separate story about how Netflix is, I don't know if they're in debt or if they say they're not making the kind of money you think they're making. But no, I was talking about Disney. I think last quarter they said they didn't hit whatever target, but I'm like, oh, okay, they only made $1 trillion instead of $2 trillion last quarter. Oh, boo-hoo.
Well, yeah. Well, no. Well, hey, $1 trillion here, $1 trillion there. Eventually, you're talking about real money, Phil.
I know, but I mean, still.
No,
I talk about them like they're a faceless corporation, but they do employ a lot of people though too.
Yeah. What I'll say is that hitting your targets is always hard. It's an unfortunate reality, because, and when let me just call a shelter half an entrenching tool for a moment. When you talk about your profit goals, that doesn't mean you're not turning a profit.
Yeah, no. That's what they projected.
They're still very, very profitable, but they had set a goal for themselves that may have been, quite frankly, unattainable.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're trying to play to a stockholder audience that is maybe not really what they need to be playing to. But here's what I'm saying. I think Disney's announcement is essentially, Netflix decided to play hardball. Netflix decided, they weren't going to sell to Disney. They weren't going to sell out, as they say. And Disney said, well, if you're not gonna join us, then we're going to destroy you. Now, as an interesting point, and this is something that actually I think gets buried in the story. Just before Disney made its announcement, Netflix made an announcement. Did you hear the announcement Netflix made?
Maybe. What was it?
They made a deal with Miller World.
Oh, yes.
Which is Mark Millar's comic book line.
Yes.
So they made a deal with Millar to bring all of his, comic books to life. Essentially saying to Disney, hey, you're not the only game in town, Mm-hmm. Now, granted, I don't know if Millar is a Defenders, but we're gonna take it as it goes. It's not like they get Old Man Logan with that deal.
I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, it's probably Disney playing hardball. They're just like, oh, okay, you're gonna go after some other comic book stuff. Well, Well, here we'll say
Yeah.
we're starting our own thing, and let's
Yeah,
let's see the
it is.
panic we can create.
It is as I said, the dance begins.
Yeah.
Um,
Was it you or was it somebody else who was saying this could also be a tactic? Because I mean, people have been speculating that Disney could try to buy Netflix. This could also be a tactic to try to get them to like lower the like stock price too.
well, yeah. I mean, obviously, I don't think Netflix is publicly traded yet. I think it's still all venture capital. I don't think Netflix has had an IPO. And essentially, for Netflix, their problem is they've got a concept that works, but their profitability is limited. Because they're spending all this money up front. But if Disney buys them, then suddenly the content is just a distribution model. And, the thing, what Netflix does isn't in and of itself unique or special. When you say, oh, we're creating a streaming service, YouTube created a streaming service some 20 years ago at this point, The reality is, yeah.
I was going to say, but what else could be? I mean, if Marvel's thinking about that, well, Disney's thinking about this, what else could have spurred this? They could be serious. They could be thinking about it because Warner Brothers DC is going to have their own digital platform, supposedly. Like that Teen Titans live action is going to be, at least that's the only thing confirmed so far for it.
And here's what I'm going to tell you. This is a bad idea.
Well, yeah.
No, because here's the thing,
People have been cutting their cable cords because they didn't want big exorbitant bills. They're like, hey, why do that when I can buy, $10 a month for Netflix or Hulu or whatever? But yeah, if everyone starts, cutting up the content and saying, oh, you got to pay $10 here for, all your Marvel stuff and, all your Disney stuff. Pay $10 here for your Warner stuff. Pay $10 for anything that doesn't fall under those on Netflix and Hulu. People are going to be like, no. They're going to pick and choose.
Yeah, I mean, that is the crux of that.
Even CBS now is, that's going to be the Star Trek.
Well, the thing is that there have been. Here's the thing. Disney already had a digital streaming service. It was called ABC.com, where you could watch ABC shows streaming whenever you wanted them. The problem is, when you do a paid service, you have to have something, you have to have content that has value. Now, here's the thing. Netflix has enough fingers and enough pies that they didn't want to sell. But, of course, that big piece of pie that is Marvel and Disney is a big deal to them. So they don't necessarily want to lose it. I don't know where it goes, but here's what I'm going to tell you. If a series of unfortunate events comes back, I may keep my Netflix even after Marvel leaves. Because I really liked a series of unfortunate events with Patrick Warburton. It's a really good show. So I'm kind of in this spot where like, interesting.
Yeah, what other people could be doing though. I mean, even if you want to keep your Netflix, if there's nothing good you want to watch that month, and you're paying our, Disney, whatever, you could be like, can't you just like cancel your subscription and then like re-enroll once something comes along that you do?
Oh, sure, of course, you always can. You probably get a better deal. My biggest problem is usually just that I'm very old and lazy, so I do like television.
Well, do you think
we've been having a real discussion in the house this week about cutting the cord, or not actually cutting the cord, but just going to the Wi-Fi cord because that's the only cord we really use. That's the only cord you really want anymore. That was a great thing on Marketplace this morning where they were discussing, how really cable companies don't care if you cut the cord. They make a lot of money on giving you this content, but quite frankly, they're still going to make money if you just buy the cord.
Yeah,
because you can't actually cut the cord. You still have to buy the cord because you need the content. It's not like anyone's giving you free Wi-Fi, to download everything in the world. So it's like, okay, you just want internet? That's fine. We charge you more for just internet. But then, yeah, go ahead. Find whatever you want. Go get HBO. Go get whatever. it's no skin off our nose. We're just running the cable, We're just putting the tubes into the internet,
They're good, Charlie. If we could figure out a way to provide cheap Wi-Fi for the world, man, rolling in it.
Well, there's actually,
Uh-oh.
I had a theory on using quantum entanglement to create a essentially a spooky distance Wi-Fi that would basically allow you to have Wi-Fi anywhere in the world. You'd have to create a
quantum entanglement. That sounds simple.
Yeah, well, exactly. But the idea is, basically once you create a Heisenberg compensator, which, how does it compensate for Heisenberg? Just fine, thank you. But if you can create, once you can create a Heisenberg compensator, and honestly, I've always felt that the way you compensate for a Heisenberg compensator is you use electromagnetic forces to hold, and we've done this in certain experiments with photons, where we've slowed photons down to basically, nothing. We've stopped photons in their tracks, and you can do this. But the idea is, so you use this sort of force to hold it, so that its position, you know its qualities. You create a quantum entanglement, and then you let it move according to how you want it to move, and then you can send communication over an infinite distance instantaneously. And you may come into a future in which, yes, your cell phone is going to have a quantumly entangled photon that is sending all the data instantaneously throughout the universe. And then, cheap, free, abundant Wi-Fi that crosses subspace connections. All I need is a degree in physics and time to do the math. And I'm a billionaire tomorrow.
Some equipment, yeah.
Yeah. Well, the real trick is, of course, is the power source, because you do have to find that unlimited energy source, which I've theorized that if you could gravitationally warp space in such a way that it essentially creates minuscule big bangs in a constant array, sort of like a internal combustion engine, you actually could have unlimited energy. But you're probably, when you're doing that, you're probably tearing the basic nature of space. So it may not be environmentally sound. Well, I'm just gonna make that statement right now. I don't know if it's an environmentally sound theory.
And small big bangs, are you creating like micro universes and you're using them to power your smartphone?
Well, yeah, essentially, but it's not like they're like. You're creating releases of. Basically, the idea is that space is static, but if you can disrupt the static, you'll release a massive amount of energy. And then you just have to collect that. Honestly, the reality is our universe kind of runs on electrons, which are probably there's modes of energy that are way more advanced than electron, or not necessarily advanced, but like that are going to be so much more than what an electron is. But right now we work with electrons because it's like your biggest quantum particle. Well, it's not the biggest quantum particle. The biggest quantum particle is a neutron and a proton. Electrons are actually really, really tiny, but they're the ones that we do all of our stuff with.
All right. All you bigwigs in the entertainment industry, do you want a cool, hip, 21st century version of Mr. Wizard to put on the air? You're looking at him right there.
I have had this idea. I wanted to do a kid show about quantum mechanics with a cartoon rabbit called Professor Hasenpfeffer, teaching children about quantum mechanics and electromagnetic energy. Because I've always felt the problem with modern scientific pedagogy is that we start with macroscopic science and then try to move into more energy-based science. And I think that if you start with macroscopic energy exchange, you can teach children about the nature of space and time and reality in a much more profound way than just, rocks are neat.
You and a puppet, you said?
No. Well, it would be a cartoon. I mean,
Okay.
I guess you could do it with a puppet, but puppets don't have the manual dexterity that a cartoon has to do actual scientific experimentation.
Well, a cartoon is a little beyond my capabilities right now, but I was gonna say, get yourself a puppet or something, and I'll sit back one week. You and the puppet explain the universe to
Yes.
children.
No, but I did have this idea called Professor Hasenpfeffer. I just, I need to actually learn how to do Flash animation.
Nice.
Because you can do amazing things with Flash animation. I've always wanted to learn Flash animation, but
Hey, if you can set it up, we have our own YouTube channel, man. I'll put that up every day, every week, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, Professor Hasenpfeffer. Because my idea is pedagogically, if you start with children with magnets and show them that you have this energy from a magnet that can attract or repel, and then start to explain to them how, when I was a Mr. Wizard's assistant, the thing I found I told you this. This was one of my early acting gigs back out of high school. I traveled the country and I put on science shows for kids as a Mr. Wizard's assistant. We had the name of Mr. Wizard and all of his experiments were licensed. And so if you ever wondered how Don Herbert made a living after Mr. Wizard, that's how he made a living. Is he licensed his character of Mr. Wizard. However, you couldn't call yourself Mr. Wizard. You had to be Mr. Wizard's assistant. And they would hire young kids like me out of high school or college and would travel the country and would put on these science shows for kids. And I was always fascinated how, one of the things we did was we did this thing about what has more energy, a big balloon or a small balloon. And the reality is that a small balloon has more energy because the energy isn't the air in the balloon. It's the molecules of the rubber being pulled together. So if you blow up a nice big balloon, the molecules get stretched out. The energy doesn't go out of it. You have a longer period of energy, but the small balloon goes higher.
Oh my God! Stop it! I want Professor Hasenpfeffer's science hour on our YouTube channel.
Yeah, well, I gotta. Yeah, I should.
Oh,
I should write that up, man. Yeah, Professor Hasenpfeffer. It was a character. It plays off the Professor Esser, but by making him a cartoon rabbit, you do the Hasenpfeffer because, of course, everyone remembers Hasenpfeffer is Rabbit from the old Bugs Bunny cartoons.
My God, I mean, if you want to start with a puppet, and if you need help, like you need an assistant who can actually move around, get Ben or Tristan in there.
Yeah, well, I should work on it. Right now, I'm still working on my Rick and Morty blog. I'm so behind.
How many weeks have you been on this thing?
Really, only 2. To be honest with you.
How long is this thing? Because I know on our blog, Rob told me 400 to 800 words.
Well, it's like I'm like 50% there, but then it's like I used to have jobs where I had downtime. I don't have downtime at my job anymore. Mm-hmm. Honestly, I had downtime at my job today, but I used it mostly to look for other jobs. Work is depressing. I was going
to say, I'm sorry, back to our Netflix, Disney, digital platforms thing. Do you think maybe like the entertainment companies are like looking for new streams of revenue because maybe they aren't getting as many advertising dollars? I don't know. Well, I haven't researched
this. They haven't been getting advertising dollars in years because here's the thing.
Well, here's my point. It's like whatever advertising dollars they have, the prices are probably down, probably because with DVRs, you're just fast forwarding through those commercials anyway.
You know what? It's not even DVRs. I'm going to tell you, this is the dirty little secret of advertising. 90% of the money you spend on advertising is wasted. Only 10% is really valuable. The old joke used to be. So the old joke.
I don't even mean them advertising their shows. I mean like, when Pepsi's paying you when Pepsi's paying you for a commercial, they're not paying you as much as they used to.
Well, yeah, of course they're not, because, and here's the thing. So when you have, what it is back in the day, you used to have eyeballs. And that was the only metric you had. was you would say, okay, so whether it was, so if you had a news, so let's say back in the golden age of the National Register, when
Jack McGee.
Jack McGee could travel the country on his expense account, just chasing hulks because, hey, the National Register sold so many issues. And because the National Register sold so many issues, they could say to their advertisers, we have 1 million people a day reading our paper. Mm-hmm. The problem is that just because they read the paper doesn't mean they saw our ad. Mm-hmm. Now, what happened in the internet age is suddenly the internet can say, oh, yeah, only 10 people saw your ad.
Yeah, only 10 people clicked on
that. Yeah. But well, even not even clicked it, just like saw it.
Yeah.
You know, like looked at it or did it or had any.
Well, they could tell them how many people visited the website. Yeah.
Well, yeah. But the problem is when Jack McGee was charging, or actually was Steinhauer was charging people $1 million for that full page ad, it was based on the idea that people were reading it because you didn't know, but you just know, well, it's where people can see. The internet basically screwed itself over by telling people, oh, no, we can tell you exactly how many people saw your ad. It's not very many because people really don't like ads. It's sort of like Sheldon Cooper explaining things to you that kind of like undermines his own argument. Because basically the internet was like, yeah, no one likes your ads. No one likes your pop-ups. No one likes those. They won't buy your product if you do that. And so it's like, well, then what am I paying you for? It's like, I don't know. You just asked how many people saw it. I told you how many people saw it.
Oh yeah, I'm totally against the company if I'm reading an article and a pop-up comes up and
exactly.
I gotta search around for the X CBR.
Yes. Really, CBR gives you bad pop-ups? I don't know.
It seems like most of the time if I click on an article anymore, I get some kind of pop-up because
you got a virus. You've got malware.
You think so?
Oh yeah. If you get no, I'm telling you right now.
I'm getting them with CBR. I'm not getting them with anyone else though.
Really? The only thing I ever get from CBR is just, hey, do you want to be in our? You want to get our newsletter like delivered to your email? It's like, do I even check my email anymore? I mean,
I don't know. Unless it's a lot of that. All I know is something pops up, and I'm just like,
yeah, I think you got malware, or you don't have your pop-up blocker in place properly.
Well, it's on my phone. I'm usually
it's on your phone?
My phone. Yeah.
Yeah, you probably got malware on your phone, man. I'm going to tell you that right now.
I don't know. I don't think I've seen it on anything else though. Just CBR.
Well, let me ask you this: what kind of ads are you getting?
Like I said, I can't remember. Some of it might be the newsletter stuff.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Like comicbook.com is always a pain for me. But CBR really is almost never a pain for me. I mean, it's like I get the ad, but that's about it, you know? I mean, honestly, they load weird, so every so often I accidentally click on stuff when I'm waiting for it to load. But, you know, aside from that, but that's me. But, you know, but the thing is that the internet basically destroyed its own business model by giving too much information.
Oh, the internet's destroyed. So the internet's destroyed a lot of businesses.
Well, it destroyed itself is the problem. Because back when it was just newspapers and you just put it out there, you know, all you could say is, well, people saw this. And like with TV shows, they said, well, 1 million people watched, you know, the last episode of MASH. And they said, okay, great. How many watched our advertising? I don't know. Who knows? Probably most of them got up and went to the bathroom when your commercial came on because they had to pee. You know, I mean, that's the reality of it, is that nobody cares about your ads, but you need your ads to sell your product. There is a story about the owner of Procter & Gamble coming to the owner of Ogilvy and Mather, and basically saying to Ogilvy, hey, look, you know, I paid you $10 million when we first got you last year, and I'm still paying you $10 million. Why is that? And he says, well, you know, half your money is wasted, but you don't know which half. And that's the thing, is like, most of this money is wasted, but it's about trying to find a way to get into people's psyches. And honestly, what we're very rapidly going back to, if you really want to understand what's going on in the universe of advertising, we're going back to paid content. There was a time, and if you like listen to old radio shows like I do love to do, you'll hear that these shows had sponsors. And not only would they mention how wonderful the sponsors were, the sponsors' existence became central to the storyline that was being told. So that when Maxwell House Coffee sponsored the Burns and Allen show, suddenly there's this whole conflict that only gets resolved because George Burns says, let's just sit down and have a nice cup of Maxwell House coffee to calm our nerves. And suddenly that's the story. And you're getting more and more towards this, and you see this with YouTube right now. We're basically back to the glory days of radio, now on YouTube, as Taco Bell tells a story of why if only we'd gone to Taco Bell, all of our problems would have been solved from the beginning. And that's sort of where we're at, because advertisers want you to like their product. But of course, advertising is pretty wasted money to start with because we already like what we like. Honestly, signboards do more than anything else. You go into the restaurant, they say, "Hey, we got Whoppers on sale for $2. You want one?" And we'll go, "Yeah, I'd like a Whopper." I didn't go get a Whopper because last night while I was watching Mad TV, which was a show back at the time. It might be a show again. I don't know anymore. I saw an advertisement for Whopper sandwiches. And I thought, I could go for a Whopper sandwich 12 hours from now when I'm hungry for lunch. So that advertising money is wasted, but that is the entire model by which our businesses are based. Now, what we also have as the option is the subscription model, which is the HBO model, which pioneered it, and the Netflix model that we have now. The problem with that is that no one knows what the actual pricing of a subscription TV service is, because TV is free with advertising, but no one wants to pay for advertising anymore. So you have this problem where people want to have content, but there's no way to get paid for it because the business models have all broken down. And so for a company like Disney to tie it all back, creating their own streaming service serves this purpose that if they can distribute their own content, they can actually have control over it. They can put it out there, and if they can get their $10 a month from everyone who has it, to some extent, it's essentially the Marvel Unlimited concept. You know Marvel Unlimited, Phil, correct?
Yes.
Where Marvel is going to let you, for the low factory to you price of $9.99 a month, have access to tons and tons of content they've already made.
Thousands of comics, yes.
Yeah, thousands of comics that, quite frankly, we don't got to pay nobody for this stuff, so have some comic books. You're paying us $10 a month. So the entire model, and for what it's worth, this is actually the same model that local TV started on. Remember how we all know all these great shows from the 50s and 60s, like the Munsters and Andy Griffith, that we used to watch? Syndication. In syndication, because they didn't have to pay those actors. Mm-hmm. So Andy Griffith saw a dime, but Don Knotts didn't see any dimes from all times that we saw Don Knotts play Barney Fife throughout his history.
Otis didn't get paid anything.
No, they got paid. They got paid for their performance. Mm-hmm. Maybe they got paid a little more for their performance, and of course they had that regular gig playing that performance, so it was a good deal for the actor. But then the producer took that content and said, well, let's repackage it. And of course, this was Desi Arnaz and Lucille Ball's big innovation. And for what it's worth, Jackie Gleason had the same idea. It's like, let's tape it. Let's show it again. Because it's still funny the next time you watch it. Just like when you go to a movie twice, because at that point in history, people didn't go to movies all the time, and you'd pay that dime, and then you'd pay a dime again, and the studio didn't have to pay that actor another dime. And this is what we're actually getting to right now with the consolidation of media, which is a return to the studio system. Now, in the 1930s, 40s, 50s, up probably through the blockbuster era of the early 80s, you had what was called the studio system. Because what happened in the blockbuster era with Zoetrope Productions and various other groups, these young maverick producers, is that you had these big conglomerations of media companies that would produce shows, that would produce movies for people to watch. And if you became contracted to a studio, you essentially worked for that studio. In the same way that if you worked for Ford, it's not like you're going to go over to Chevy next week, see if they're offering a better deal. It's like, no, you work for Ford and you're going to stay working for Ford because the whole deal of the agreement is you work for Ford. And what happens is that when you have that consolidation of media, that's how it gets profitable. And so at the height of the studio system, these actors and writers didn't necessarily have a lot of job security except as they produced, but as they produced, the studio took care of them. And it's a very weird place to be at, not having that independence, but also having at least some care for yourself. Anyway, we're moving towards that right now. But of course, after that, then comes the disruption of the Young Turks. This was actually something that I realized recently about why Gen X really hates millennials. Because Gen X, we had brilliant ideas, but we had no way to explore them. And millennials who have brilliant ideas have this entire internet economy that they can go on for nothing and produce something and become a hit. Mm-hmm. And it's very frustrating when it's like this. If I were a millennial, I'd be like a $1 billion YouTube star. I honestly feel that. Because I was writing sketches and having things and doing stuff, I would have been one of these guys who gets that big viral hit. Had I been, a young, beautiful teenager when I actually, when the internet showed up. But like, I'm actually older than YouTube, In fact, before YouTube launched, me and my friends were sitting around discussing, a video sharing platform. And I of course, said, I don't think that's a good idea. Because I'm always on the wrong side of history. But that's me. That's business. This is a very business-centric podcast this week, Phil. Do you want to talk comic books?
Sure. Or
by the way, I've never seen you look more bored during.
No. I'm sorry. No, I was just checking to make sure we don't have any emails or anything, or
making sure something to shut them up.
No, making sure there isn't any big headlines we should talk about. But no, I know we were talking comic books last night on Capes and Lunatics, episode 13.
But I had only read 2 by that point.
Oh, did you read more?
Oh yes, because I read all my other books.
Okay.
Ms. Marvel 21.
Okay.
Such a good book. Such a nuanced book. Spoilers, if you haven't read it yet. Kids, read it. It's a good book. You should be reading Ms. Marvel. We get the revelation that Discord is actually Josh, who is the Flash Thompson of our Kamala Khan book. And you basically get a complete explanation of the alt-right here, which is that, he got sick of everyone telling him how easy he had it when he doesn't feel it's easy himself. And he sort of gets wrapped up in the whole nonsense. Really good book.
You said
Ms. Marvel.
That's issue 21?
Yeah, issue 21. Honestly, Ms. Marvel, sometimes, here's the thing. Ms. Marvel's a teen book. So sometimes it gets very soft in its writing. I'm going to be honest with you. It gets soft writing. Mm-hmm. It gets Scooby-Doo writing. it's not as good as it could be. And then every so often, Ms. Marvel just dusts herself off and brings out the old Errol Flynn charm. And you go, oh, that's why this book is a hit. And this is one of those issues. This is one of those issues where you're going to go, that is why I read Ms. Marvel every month. Nice. Okay, 21. Fun thing, Squirrel Girl. Never before have I enjoyed their lack of continuity with their general mainstream Marvel Universe more than this. We find out that every Latvian high school student must be able to essentially ready assemble a Doom bot if the need arises. So our plotline right now in Squirrel Girl is Squirrel Girl and Doreen Green and Nancy Whitehead have won a programming contest because the Savage Land is dying. Because the Savage Land is maintained by this super advanced alien technology that has suddenly, all of a sudden, stopped working. And I don't want to give this spoilers because it's a great spoiler at the end, but it makes this really interesting thing because, of course, when everyone's trying, first of all, it gets this great thing about Dr. Doom right here, because Nancy Whitehead is falling for Stefan Klossner, our Latvian computer expert, who is trying to explain why Latvians like Dr. Doom. And they make this great little story here. Like, imagine that there's a man who's super, with super strength and shoots ray beams and the like. And he makes a bunch of robot duplicates to help him out, which Superman also did. He could do these great things. Wouldn't you want him to at least try to make the world better? Of course, Nancy Whitehead says no. As much as I love, someone like Squirrel Girl, I don't want her to be dictator of the world. And it's a great thing, but just the idea that every Latvian high school student could build a Doombot, which means that they could essentially create a Dr. Doom to solve their problems. That's pretty awesome. And then, for all of my complaining about Superman recently, new Superman, no complaints. Issue 14. Oh, goodness, I paid $3.99 for that. Didn't mind, didn't even notice. It is fantastic. We've got Baxi and Daylan, who is the Batman and the Wonder Woman. Daylan was recently revealed to be Green Snake, a snake who had been able to transform into a human to go from the animal kingdom to the human kingdom. That is why she is the Wonder Woman. We get good old Flash of China, who is awesome in her pink Flash outfit and her connection to the Speed Force. Everyone's connected to the Speed Force now. It's awesome. And then we get our big battle. Well, we get two cool battles. We get we don't know how it's going to end, but we get I Ching facing off against the evil doppelganger Chinese guy, and then we get Kenan Kong facing off of the essentially Chinese clone Superman. And then Kenan accesses his heat vision and defeats him, which was awesome. And then someone stabs him with a kryptonite sword because, as it turns out, Ms. W. Spoilers, kids. Ms. W. doesn't like extra Supermen running around. Yeah. Just a great whiz-bang, awesome book. I love New Superman. I love New Superman better than Superman. I'm going to say that. Now, granted, I'm not Tyler, who may like Superman just because it's Superman, and it's that's his thing. It's like me and Ben Graham and the Fantastic Four. Don't care who you are, I'm going to love it no matter what you say. But New Superman as a story, it's got strength and power, and I love it. Nice. And that's my opinion on that subject. What did you read this week, Phil, that was interesting that we haven't already talked about?
Oh, I think I mentioned them on Capes and Lunatics, because I'm still telling you, read Red Hood. You will not, Red Hood and the Outlaws number 13 this week. You will not be disappointed. Mm-hmm. I wasn't sure if you were going to read Amazing Spider. Well, I know eventually you're going to get to Amazing Spider-Man 31 because that's Peter and Otto's like the last part of their big battle, and I'm telling you, Pete, you think Otto was mad at Peter before? Wait till you see what he does.
Oh, I'm afraid to read it, but yeah, I will read it. I'm going to get to it.
But
yeah.
but I had a list of other things that weren't, well, they're Marvel and DC, but they're not comics. Do you remember that what was it, last year it came out, that Batman 66 animated movie?
Yeah, I still haven't seen that, man. I really want to find that.
Yeah, I get that because I think we need to review that on Capes and Lunatics. But the sequel was coming. It says the article I was reading said October 17th, but they said it wasn't confirmed yet. So it's probably around October. The sequel, Batman vs. Two-Face, and I saw the trailer. It looks pretty awesome. Not only is it Adam West's last role as Batman, yeah, but
yeah.
do you remember? I think I told you. Do you remember who I said's playing Two-Face? Harvey Dent and then Two-Face? William Shatner.
William Shatner. Oh, he's going to be fantastic as Two-Face.
Oh yeah, I was watching the trailer like when he's Harvey Dent before he changes. You know, his voice is all down like this, and then he's like as Two-Face. He's like, we're gonna take control.
You know, people got mad at Shatner recently because he got kind of un-PC talking. You know, I don't know, man.
He's like your grandfather. I mean, he's like in his 80s.
Well,
I mean, I know that's no excuse, but I mean...
No, it's not an excuse, but it's also just this fact that, you know what, here's what I'm going to say. Because here's what I'm honestly going to say about whenever we want to give celebrities stuff for not being properly socially aware, or not being scientifically aware, or not being whatever aware that, you know, we've decided you have to be aware. I only worry about politicians who have dumb ideas. Yeah. So, like, Donald Trump can have every crazy idea in the book, and it doesn't bother me so long as he's a TV show host and a real estate magnate. Because, in truth, if it were that offensive to me, I won't stay at his hotels. Not that I could afford to stay at his hotels anyway. And if I ever win the lottery, I still wouldn't stay at his hotels because, you know, maybe that's going to be my protest. But then again, I'm probably going to stay at Marriott, and that's owned by Mormons, and they tend to be very religious-y people too. And, you know, I'd probably have conflicts politically with Marriott chain. So at a certain point, I don't worry about people. They don't really affect my life that they have a political agenda. I don't worry about Chick-fil-A, you know. As far as Chick-fil-A goes, I haven't really eaten at Chick-fil-A ever.
Oh, the food's good.
I hear it's very good chicken. You know, honestly, I haven't had that much bad chicken in my life. Chicken's a very tasty animal. So I think that once you say, hey, let's take this really tasty bird we've bred over thousands of years, and let's take this very tasty substance called fat and fry it in it and put some bread on it too, because that's always good. I think once you cross that line, at a certain point, it's like, okay, that's going to be good food.
I mean, they seem to be successful. I mean, yes, they're like owned by, I guess, a religious family or person, yes. So they take a very religious view on gay marriage, let's say. And I think when you're a big business, you should just keep your mouth shut, because when you start getting political and stuff, or expressing your views, you're angering and probably pushing away part of your business, part of your customer base.
What do you do?
Which they don't seem like they're hurting, but still, it's like keep it quiet. But all I gotta say is, hey, good food, and they seem to train their employees right over there. Because I mean, if you're sitting there, I mean, they'll come by. They'll be like, "Oh, can I take your tray, throw it away? Can I get you a refill?" I mean, most
fast food workers are actually really conscientious about their work. I've worked in a lot of fast food jobs. I find that the people that are rude are usually the exception, not the rule. But here's what I want to say about that. See, I grew up in Michigan, and of course, we had Tom Monahan, who, of course, was the founder of Domino's Pizza, was a very staunch, right-to-lifer kind of guy, gave lots of money to Operation Rescue. And I didn't eat at Domino's, not for political reasons, but because pizza was really bad. Not much better right now. They're really trying to say we're good pizza now, and I'm like, no, you're not. You are still like, you're still fourth behind Little Caesars and basically if Hungry Howie's was an actual national chain, no one would even know what you were, Domino's. It's not good pizza.
You're sidetracking me again.
Yes. But my point is that, if I'm gonna not eat at a place, it's because the food's not bad. The food's bad, not because the political opinions of the person who runs it,
Mm-hmm.
If you're not, obviously, at a certain point there are lines you have to question of whether or not you're going to cross. But at the end of the day, if you don't have actual political power, I don't worry about your political opinions. And I don't
know if I agree, but I think the argument is, these people have the spotlight on them, and a lot of people listen to them, and they're like, well, you should be socially conscious. I don't know, something like you need to be a role model because people are watching you no matter what.
But I don't even know what he necessarily said. From what it sounds like he was just doing a basic old man rant about kids today and social justice, and these social justice warriors always, trying to say you can't grab a woman's ass if you want to, which granted you can't. And we should all know that.
I mean, especially coming from the Star Trek franchise. I mean, that's
and I used the bad word.
The Gene Roddenberry model. I mean, I guess people are saying, that was
not for nothing. Okay, let's just step back on the Gene Roddenberry model, because I am certain William Shatner is sitting there like, did you ever hang out with Gene Roddenberry? And what a guy who liked the standard uniform for Star Trek women were mini skirts.
Hey, it was the late 60s. He tried. Yeah,
No, I understand that. And the fact that he's dead and Shatner's alive should not mean that Shatner gets judged more harshly than everyone else who came before him. Because they all were that. They all
Plus, don't be judging 1968 Gene Roddenberry by 2017 standards. I mean,
exactly.
Let's just say they didn't know better.
Well, it's not that they didn't know, but it's that they knew great. It's like this. Hugh Hefner was a feminist. He is, and he still will tell you he's absolutely a feminist. He likes to have sex, or what he calls sex, with 18-year-old girls because they look nice, I guess. I don't know. I personally don't see it, but okay, whatever floats your boat.
And he fights for their right to do that.
Exactly. It's this idea that there was a point in history where people were coming out of the Mad Men era,
mm-hmm.
and saw this perspective. And maybe their perspective hasn't continued to evolve, but most people's perspectives don't continue to evolve. You can be the Dalai Lama and be completely enlightened from birth. You can be the Pope and maybe gain that enlightenment over century or decades of study and dedication. But most of us get our peak enlightenment sometime in our 30s. And if we haven't crossed the Rubicon to the next level of enlightenment, we're sorry. I'm sure my kids are going to think I am just the most throwbacky guy in the world because, I think you should have to work for a living, or some other nonsense that the future will see me as. So I am going to give. Here's what I'll say: Shatner was never a nice guy.
Ask George Takei.
Yeah, ask George Takei. It's like ask any of them. Ask I said, oh man, what is hers first name?
Michelle
Is it
Nichols.
Nicole? Michelle. I couldn't remember if it was Nicole or Michelle. I know her last name was Nichols, but I couldn't remember if it was Michelle or Nicole. But
Michelle, yeah.
yeah, and and as she said, don't you want to hear about how we all hate you, to William Shatner, and that was the reinvention of William Shatner when he was doing his biography and says, "Don't you want to hear how we all hate you?" And so in many ways, Shatner's reinvention came from his understanding that people didn't like him because of who he was, but at the same time, he's still that guy. He's still Donald Trump. I remember.
Hey, I mean, in the case of Shatner, I mean, he's what, 80 some years old, and he's like, yeah, maybe I got this huge ego, but look where it's gotten me.
Yeah, well, but more to the point,
Why change now?
The thing is that times used to be different, and the way people approach the world used to be different, and you can't always hold everyone to the same accountability that we hold ourselves to.
Some people, I mean, I've learned this the hard way, but some people do not want to evolve, Charlie.
Yeah, well, no one wants to evolve.
Some people don't want to learn. They don't want to evolve. They want, they don't want to take in any new input. They just like, let me live my life the way I'm living it.
Well, exactly. Well, because
damn your facts and
but you know what?
Views.
But we're all like that to some extent. We only accept differences where it doesn't hurt us. I always pride myself on being willing to say, okay, I was wrong. I say I'm wrong more than most folks in the world, I think. And if someone disproves me on that, I'll tell them they're wrong because I won't accept that I'm not wrong more than everyone else. But the fact of the matter is that, as we all deal with the world, oftentimes we're going to come to a place where it's not comfortable to face that change. And to me, what is my rule of thumb is I try to be as libertarian as I can on social issues, which says if it isn't directly causing problems for me and those I love, I really don't care. So who you want to sleep with, so long as it's not someone who cannot consent.
Yeah, I kind of
like children and animals. Basically,
as long as you're consenting adults and you're not hurting anyone. Yeah,
exactly. It's like, what the heck do I care? It's like when I get to these people talking about trans people in the military or whatnot. It's like, look, if someone is willing to put their life on the line for this country and I don't have to. Honestly, we always talk about how we don't give our veterans enough. I think that if that's what a veteran wants, mazel tov,
And I don't understand, if you don't like these people, why wouldn't you want them in the military? If they're going to go in the battle, I mean, wouldn't you want them in a dangerous situation where they could?
Honestly, here's the thing. Here's the thing. See, because I actually evolved on trans issues. I used to be kind of anti-trans because I did not accept the science of the idea that, someone with gender dysphoria should have a surgical solution for what is essentially a psychological problem. Mm-hmm. And then I spent 5 minutes one day talking to a trans person and said, oh, okay. Because I was willing to accept their personal experience over my assumed reason.
My point exactly. You take in new info, and sometimes you'll be okay, I wasn't right about that, or
Well, exactly. I mean, this was like
that's what
years
I'm saying.
ago. I was 20.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. I mean, there's people still 40, 50, 60. They'll hear this info and they're like, "Oh no, that's crazy talk."
Well, yeah, because they don't want to
alter their worldviews.
They don't want to accept someone else's perspective because I think on some level, when you accept someone else's perspective, so
this is how Trump got elected.
Yeah.
There was a big majority. Well, I don't know about a majority, but there's a big portion of this country who saw things changing socially, whatever, and they were like, "Well, this is what it was like in the '50s." I know. Let's not change that.
Well,
people get out and vote. You know why?
Well,
You know
honestly,
why?
it's not
You
even
know
the
why?
50s.
You know,
It's just going back to the 80s. Quite frankly,
I
it's not
know,
like they
but
want
I
to go
mean,
that far back.
you know why these, you know how some of these people get elected is because all the old people go out and vote.
Well, yeah. Well, but and here's what I'll tell you. I mean, obviously, the point of order that people should always make is that actually the majority of people didn't vote for Trump. You know, the majority of people did not vote for Trump. It
That's
just
that's why I changed what I said. But I mean, it was a big portion now.
But the thing is that what it is that to acknowledge other humans' humanity is a difficult thing for people. Because to acknowledge that someone else's perspective is as valid as your own is to, in some ways, dilute your own perspective. To say my perspective is not sacrosanct. And well, for me, see, this is why I always got to go back to why being Catholic is the best way. Because every Catholic knows what I know isn't anything. I'm just some guy who's a Catholic. I'm not the Pope. Only one guy gets to be the Pope, and that's a lot of pressure to be the Pope.
I ain't no Pope.
I ain't no Pope. So I'm not saying I'm infallible. Every Catholic is raised from a young boy. You are not infallible. You ain't the Pope, kid. You study hard. Maybe someday you get to be the Pope, and then you're going to realize what a pain in the butt it's going to be the Pope. Every word you say gets taken out of context, and everyone will say, "Oh, the Pope said this, the Pope said that, the Pope is this, the Pope is that," and it's like, "Oh, you can vote. I don't want to be the Pope, but you got it because that's your job." And the thing is that as a Catholic, because I've been raised to know I am not the Pope, I have this inherent humility to my ideas, because no matter what I believe, I know it is not infallible. Because I'm not the Pope. So I'm willing to accept whatever you want to tell me. And if you want to tell me your personal experience is X, even if I don't like what your personal experience is, I'm going to say, okay, well, that's your personal experience. And if it's not hurting me, I guess I don't really have a beef with it. The problem is that not everyone was raised Catholic. So a lot of people, unfortunately, were raised Protestant. Where everybody gets to be the Pope and you get to say whatever you want and you can be as absolute in your beliefs as you want. And it's like, okay. So, and then they get worried because someone's telling them, well, actually, my personal experience differentiates from your understanding of the world. And then they get very mad. And that's how you elect any politician, really. Because it doesn't matter if it's the left or the right, if it's Bernie Sanders or Donald Trump or even Hillary Clinton in the center. Because technically, believe it or not, she actually is a centrist. Trump is like the first real radical president we've had in probably decades.
Since Nixon.
No, Nixon. What? No, Nixon was probably the most centrist president in history. He was not a good president because he violated the law. But he was very, very centrist. You have to remember that, like, the Republican Party in the 60s, this is like Republicans that had come of age in the 40s with the New Deal. So it's like no one was particularly trying to rock the boat. They were trying to work around the edges. I mean, even Reagan, who was really radical for his time, isn't that radical by today's standards. We have yet to have a real radical leftist president in this country. The most radical leftist president we've ever had, of course, was FDR. But even he wasn't that radical. He was kind of like Donald Trump. He was a good talker and kind of a Plutarch, but and I'm using the term Plutarch poorly there. I know that. Because I'm using it for the term plutocracy, even though I know that Plutarch was a writer, not an actual member of the plutocracy. But anyway. Why
don't we cut this soon? Because I think we're over an hour. In my head.
Yeah, we're well over everything here. Okay, so let's call it a night. If you have thoughts on politics and you'd like to talk to us about them, or actually if you want to talk about comic books, which is actually sort of the inspiration for all of this, why don't you call us at our voicemail number? And Phil, what's our voicemail number?
614-382-2737. That's 614-38-CAPES. You can get a hold of us, capesandlunatics at gmail.com. Bombard us with requests. I want, was it Professor
Hasenpfeffer.
Professor
Science
Hasenpfeffers. Yes, if you want that show with Charlie Esser, bombard us with emails, voicemails.
Yes. I would love, if there's an actual interest in Professor Hasenpfeffer, I will happily produce the show. I will write it up. I will make that thing happen.
I want it. Bombarding people, please.
And of course, if you'd like to write to me about Professor Hasenpfeffer in that old-fashioned email way, you can always do so at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. And follow me on Twitter as I live tweet something someday, probably Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which they're bringing back because they know Inhumans isn't going to work. At Charlie Esser, that's CharlieEsser. Look for 2 E's in the middle for quality. Phil, you want to give any social media on the way out, or you just want to call it a night?
Well, you can always get a hold of me personally, nightwingpdp at gmail.com, and on Twitter, I am at nightwingpdp. So let's have a conversation.
There we go. And thank you for connecting with us, ladies and gentlemen. Please, super connect with us once again. Good night.
Save us, Professor Hasenpfeffer. You're our only hope.
Yay.